Okay, so before I was locked up, I was trying to turn in some of my predators. I did so live on YouTube. The reason for this is so that I can show proof. So my predators worked together to make sure that I couldn't. They broke the law to make sure that I couldn't. This includes Leslie Snell, Robert Warnick, Sheriff Scott DaCosta, and former Deputy William Barr. It is nobody's job, apparently, to investigate the police. And we got a lot of situations going on in this country well, where the good guys take the blame and the bad guys get rewarded. That's pretty much capitalism in a nutshell. We've come to a point where the misfits, the people that society doesn't want because they're not pretty or because they're not superficial, so society takes everything out on them. A lot of people's advice to me is to be superficial. That doesn't make the world a better place, it makes it worse. Because of the laws that were broken, because Sheriff Scott DaCosta and his deputies decided that it was okay to break the law to try to hide their crimes, well, it makes it difficult for me to take them to court because the crimes that they committed prevented me from defending myself in court, and the outcome of that court is somehow magically set in stone, even though I was illegally prevented from going. Robert Warnick should have had a protection order against him the first time he threatened to kill me, and then one the second time he threatened to kill me. And then there should have been one when he assaulted me back in January of this year. Because there was no protection order in place the first time that he threatened to kill me. He was allowed to threaten to kill me a second time. And Deputy Sean Holloway refused to do a damn thing about it. And Sheriff Scott DaCosta, well, that video is actually here on YouTube. So you guys can look it up. Scott DaCosta said I couldn't bring up anything old. Well, everything is old by the time they're actually willing to do something, and they're not actually willing to do something. The Sheriff's Department has protected all of the people who have threatened, harassed, and assaulted me since Natalie's death. That is because the sheriff knows that they fucked up before Natalie was killed. Now, because there was no protection order in place the second time Robert Warnick threatened to kill me, he was allowed to chase me down in his vehicle and assault me and break my phone that was full of evidence. And then there should have been a protection order. But even then, there wasn't one, and he was allowed to stalk me after assaulting me. I was locked up for 7 months because literally all four of those people that I was trying to turn in on YouTube here so that there's proof, and that proof is easy to access by a public pretender. Those people all broke the law, lied on their government or court paperwork and court documents and police reports. The fact that this has been ongoing for 5 years really shows what a screwed up situation we got. How some people are not considered human beings. Thank goodness we have misfits who, well, they don't care about their lives anymore. They're willing to die for your rights. How many misfits do y'all kill a year? Everybody's, well, pretty well aware at this point that if you're not a pretty white girl, nobody gives a shit. Who got more exposure? Natalie Bollinger or Selena Not Afraid? Who got more exposure? Frida Nose's gun or Gabby Petito? Somebody named Dandelion typed, "You are not saying anything about Bob. Why are you avoiding the Bob issue?" Who's Bob? Is that your battery operated boyfriend, Dandelion? After I got out of the lockup, because all four of those people who lied on their applications or lied on their court crap, they did outright lie. And as a result, the charges had to be dropped. But still, no protection order against Robert Warnick. So he approached me after I got out. Not okay. Definitely not okay. This is a registered sex offender who threatened my life on multiple occasions and assaulted me and stalked me and got away with it scot-free because he's friends with Leslie Snell. Now let's bring that situation up. The criminal bullshit that they pulled prevented me from going to my civil case. It also prevented me from going to court against Robert Warnick, and it also prevented me from showing evidence against Robert Warnick. Sean Holloway knew this. The recordings between Holloway and I show that he knew exactly what he was doing. He knew that he was breaking the law when he did so. All of these people are lucky that I'm not one of them misfits who goes around killing people for doing such horrible things. These people are all lucky that I choose not to carry a gun with me. These people are all lucky that I choose not to hunt them down like the dogs that they are. Today I was in Pump and Pantry and a woman walked in. I wasn't sure if it was Leslie Snell or her twin sister, Lynn. But I left. I'm not going to stick around to find out. I'm not going to blame Lynn for what Leslie did. It's not Lynn's fault. Also, it turned out as I was pulling out that it was actually Lynn and not Leslie. But also, because of the shit with Leslie and her trying to give out my number on multiple occasions, as well as her lying on police reports, there needs to be a protection order against her. Natalie Bollinger destroyed my life through lying and thought it was okay. When I asked her to tell the truth and call off the dogs because her ex-boyfriend, among many other people, were threatening to kill me and threatening to kill my family, what did Natalie do? She got fucked up out of her goddamn mind on drugs and picked up a firearm. Her dad did the same thing. He's been busted with illegal firearms more than once, and he still can't stay off the drugs. When these people screw up, I am the one who gets punished. I was the one who was illegally prevented from contacting the people that I needed to contact to defend myself in court or to show up in court. And police nationwide have taken part in this. Nationwide. Washington State, Wyoming, Colorado, Nebraska, Virginia, all across the board. They have done everything in their power to make sure that my predators get away with it. And at this point, it's pretty obvious that there is nothing in the United States worth fighting for anymore. Our Constitution is gone. Now, there's going to be a lot of minorities who are complaining that the situation with Gabby Petito took away from their cause, took away from their victims. Meanwhile, all of these groups are avoiding the most victimized people in America. The homeless only have 1/120th the population of black people in America, yet they account for 49% of those killed by police. That is over double the number of black people killed by police. The disabled have equal numbers to black people, and they are killed at over double the amount of black people. I happen to be both homeless and disabled. I have zero family support. When people choose to victimize me, my family looks the other way. Of course, I grew up in the system because my parents couldn't stay off of cocaine. Imagine that. Now, the situation with Natalie and her sister and all the BS that they pulled because they were on drugs. You think that's something I'm going to say thank you for? Is that something that I should have to apologize for? Because that seems to be the general consensus. Because I'm not allowed to show my side. None of these web sleuth groups have ever tried to show my side. And I've sent them a lot of evidence. They tell me, oh, we'll show your side. We'll tell you your side. Some of them do anyway. But then they never follow through. Like Rob Gavigan. He's not the only one either. Then we got people who want to sell a hateful narrative. People like Mike Boudet, who is basically the modern equivalent of a Nazi. All of you know these things are going on. Even though homeless people only account for 1/120th the population of black people, there are still more hate crimes against the homeless than all other hate crimes combined in the United States times 5. That's right, 5 times as many hate crimes as all other groups. And that's not even including police interactions. Americans hate broke people. Even broke people in America hate broke people. Every broke person in America wants to believe that they're really rich. Their ship just hasn't sailed yet. No, there was never a ship there for you to begin with. Now, when it comes to Leslie Snell, she needs to be locked up for her crimes. Scott DaCosta needs to be locked up for his crimes. There is no excuse for the Nebraska State Patrol to be ignoring this situation after all these years. The first time I tried to turn in Sheriff DaCosta was back in 2018. The fact is, the cops and my so called friends let these predators harm me. It's not that I wasn't telling them, it's not that they weren't informed, it's that they didn't fucking care. They thought their pretty words would fix it. Are your pretty words going to bring Gabby back? No, they are not. Are your pretty words going to bring Selena Not Afraid back? No, they are not. Are your pretty words going to stop the abuse? No, they're not. You got a choice. You can either stand up for your rights or you don't deserve them. If these things happen to somebody else and you turn a blind eye, you need to keep in mind that these are your rights. When George Floyd was killed, it was disgusting how many people wanted to get on and pretend like he was a bad person for being killed by a cop. Most of y'all want to pretend that cops are inherently good. They're not. They're not. Most cops join the police force because they want to shoot somebody. That's not good. That's not all right. That's not okay. Having those people in charge, deciding who it is that is a pretty enough white girl to be worth investigating. Hell, if the white girl is pretty enough, they will outright frame an innocent man. You don't have to have evidence. There was no evidence against me, and I still spent 7 months locked up. I was literally sent to prison and assaulted repeatedly in the prison by the guards. Denied my right to contact my public pretender, Robert Harvoy, for nearly 40 days. You're damn right I speak out. You're goddamn right. Somebody has to. This town is tiny. Despite the fact that I was the one victimized by Robert Warnick repeatedly. Despite the fact that I was the one victimized by Leslie Snell repeatedly. And Scott DaCosta repeatedly. And his deputies repeatedly. I am the one who had everything taken from me. And then there's those of you who want to pretend like those on so-called welfare are bad people or a drain on our economy. You know, most of those people worked harder than you ever will. Hard, back-breaking labor that is below you. And just because you have family support and you get paid more than you should, and I do mean more than you should, if you are not performing the back-breaking labor that keeps this country going, you're getting paid too fucking much. You have no place to look down on those who are busting their asses. What, if somebody doesn't have the money for insurance, it's all right to abuse them? If somebody has a penis, it's all right to lie about them and have them incarcerated? I have evidence against all of these people. But I can't get anybody to actually do anything about it because many of them are law enforcement. Meanwhile, it is a felony for all of these law enforcement agencies to ignore the crimes against me. A felony. It is against the law for them not to investigate these crimes. But then there's the reality of the situation that if something is not done about these monsters, more people are going to get killed. Not listening to me gets people killed. Not listening to me at Clearview got Tibor Hatay killed. Not listening to me about those drugs that they inject you with got Elijah McClain killed. Not listening to me about the Boulder Police Department and how they treat the homeless. It's gotten a few people killed this year already. But you don't give a damn about them because they're homeless. You're not going to tell their stories because they're homeless. You are going to assume that they're mentally ill, and you're going to assume that there's quote unquote mental illness that you assigned them as schizophrenia, that they are magically making all of these things up. Because no cop would ever do anything wrong. Waylon Lolatai would never hurt a person, would he? He did. He assaulted 7 homeless people in 2018. I was the first one. When I think about my fellow countrymen, I am sickened. They give a fuck about Gucci. They care about Louis Vuitton. They care about pretty white girls, but they don't care about any of their victims. Why is it okay for a pretty white girl and her friends to victimize an innocent man? Meanwhile, you take a look at the Natalie situation. Was I on drugs? No. Was Natalie? Yes. But to this day, I get people treating me like I'm some sort of sicko fucking druggy piece of shit. Who was it that got Natalie addicted to those drugs? Who was it that fed those drugs to Natalie and her twin sister? Her dad. Oh, yeah. And a bunch of boys who just wanted to have sex with her. So you punish me for the crimes of others, something that happens to this day. If they can't gather enough evidence to lock up Gabby Petito's ex for killing her, you guys will go after homeless people for it. The fact is that there is still ample evidence and proof that the Bollinger family, the news media, and law enforcement intentionally made me a target. They all committed felonies. What the news media did is just as illegal. They didn't bother to find out the truth of what they were saying, just like these web sleuth groups never once bothered to look at both sides. In most of these cases, actually, in all of them that I've listened to so far, they just make up whatever the fuck they want. And they literally have to ignore factual evidence in order to do this. When people start harassing me on Facebook or YouTube and I block them, they just make another profile. No biggie, right? Now, they're not going to give their real names. A lot of the people who are supposedly going to help me created fake profiles, tried claiming that's their real name. Really? If that's your real name, you wouldn't have had to create a fake profile now, would you? Now, my family didn't want to hear shit. They didn't care. They didn't give a holy fuck what I was going through and still don't. Now, most of my family's got some major issues and they're all really, really struggling because they can't work together as a family. Too busy being selfish. Of course, if you look at me and my siblings, I am not a child molester or a rapist. My mom's little sister is not a child molester or a rapist. My mom won't do shit for her either. My older brother is not a child molester or a rapist. My mom don't give a shit about him either. My little brother, though, raped his own stepdaughter. My mom helped him out a lot. Andrew Witcher molested his own stepdaughter. He lives in my mom's old house here in Chapel, Nebraska now. Most of these people got the same drugs in common. For the most part, it's methamphetamines. They just can't seem to get clean. I don't post this shit up for your goddamn entertainment. I post this shit up because I need help. And I'm not the only one. I am not the only victim of the bias of your society. There's a lot of people who claimed that they wanted to help me, but whenever it came to actually keeping their word, there was some excuse why they couldn't, or they would mislead the situation, like Mandy Hughes did, like her daughter, Alyssa Rainwater, did. Without someone on my side in person, I just have to take the abuse. And this is not okay. 5 years worth of abuse for crimes that I didn't commit. All because I had nobody actually in my corner. I had people pretending that they would be, but they never spoke up. There were all sorts of people when Natalie first disappeared that said, hey, Sean would never do a thing like that. You damn right I would never do a thing like that. But then they thought it was all over when Joseph Lopez was caught. No, law enforcement had already committed enough felonies by that point that they were hella invested in hiding their crimes. Meanwhile, Longmont, their police department tells me that they can't investigate anything going on in Boulder because it's out of jurisdiction. Meanwhile, with the Zaid Atkinson situation, who was it that investigated it? Longmont. Here, Nebraska State Patrol says it's not their job to investigate this, that, or the other. It's got to go through the Dual County Sheriff's Department. Meanwhile, on my paperwork claims that the Nebraska State Patrol was investigating me for things that supposedly happened in this county, things that were untrue. These monsters get away with it because the cops did not do their job. And who's going to make them? Every time another one of these fucking fake ass Natalie Bollinger fucking give a shit groups pops up, it's a hate group. These people don't fucking know Natalie. They never did. They heard a story from somebody like that Anna Saves lady, who's really just a fucking nut job. Or they heard the first half of Rob Gavigan's thing on her. Or they listen to Mike Boudet, who obviously, his entire episodes, 109 and 110, they were entirely biased. I needed help. I am still, to this day, trying to get help. But for you guys, it's just fucking entertainment. Those who know me, like Kinga Nichols, didn't speak out about my story, but she spoke out about the other victims. It got to the point where I was definitely pissed off at her. Oh, you're going to complain that the officers who, literally the same officers who did this to me, you're going to complain they did it to somebody else you don't know. There's a lot of people that are pissed off because I recorded conversations between us. The reason I recorded those conversations is because those are cowards. Cowards are not good people. A good person would have fucking spoken up. I wouldn't have had to record them months and months and months after the situation. They could have spoken up to begin with and done something about the abuse. There's also a lot of them that believe that I owe them loyalty, despite the fact that they're not loyal. And guess what? I was loyal, just not to them. I was loyal to their kids. What Amy Spencer did was horrible. Horrible. And although her kids were not the best acting children on the planet, that doesn't make it okay to victimize them. Not for Joshua Rayborn, not for Amy Spencer, aka Amy Kingery. Because of the situation with Leslie Snell and being denied the right to go to my court dates or even contact my public pretender about the situation. Because of that, I cannot go to the Dual County Sheriff's Department about crimes committed against me. I cannot safely go to the Nebraska State Patrol about crimes against me. The FBI doesn't give a shit about any of the crimes against me, but then again, the FBI took part in the crimes against me. The Nebraska State Patrol took part in the crimes against me. Scott DaCosta and Leslie Snell took part in the crimes against me, including hiding the crimes of those who victimized me. Including destroying evidence, including coercion, including physical, emotional, and financial abuse. Sure, we have rights in the United States on paper, and that is it. Unless people speak up. When people were told that I was this big, horrible monster, there was an outcry from the public to do a lot of harm to me, and many people did harm me. And many people threatened me. These Natalie Bollinger groups were full of people looking for any excuse to harm me, or people who just looked like me. Sure, we have the law, and it doesn't do shit. These people knew that they were breaking the law when they were doing these things in these Natalie Bollinger, so-called Natalie Bollinger justice groups that were really Sean Schwartz hate groups. They knew that they were committing crimes. But nobody's going to fucking investigate them. It's not illegal for people to harm me, apparently. But if they just pretend that I might, if they outright lie and have zero evidence whatsoever, I can be incarcerated and assaulted over a dozen times while incarcerated on zero evidence. But even when I show the evidence, even when I prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, I'm not allowed to show it in fucking court. Deputy Sean Holloway went out of his way to break the law so that a registered sex offender who is friends with one of his coworkers got away with his crimes. What does this have to do with Gabby Carter? There is no Gabby Carter, dumbass. It's Gabby Petito. And what it has to do with is that people care about pretty white girls. They don't care about anybody else unless it's their group. The most victimized people in America are victimized by you. When you are victimized, you take it out on the homeless and the disabled. When Natalie was victimized by her father and by her ex-boyfriends and by her boyfriends that she had when she was killed, who is it that took the punishment? Me. Who is it that took the punishment for an entire year before she was killed? Me. Who is it that spoke out? Me. Someone called Elise. It says this message is held for review. Elise typed, document your story, man. Try and connect with larger outlets to share it because you've been through shit and you need justice. I don't understand why they hold that for review. All right. Elise, I did not mean to delete your message. I was going to accept it so that everybody could see it. I suppose I should take a picture of this so that I can prove that I screwed up. Yes, I do that, people. I admit that I screw up. If I make a mistake, I do document it. There's a reason for that. There's a big difference between making a mistake and hiding a crime. All right, picture taken. I've tried everybody. I've tried the news outlets. They don't care. They sold their narrative and they're sticking with it. I don't have the money for a real fucking lawyer. They already knew that. That's why all of you pick homeless and disabled people as your victims. They're the easiest to victimize. They're easier to victimize than old people in nursing homes. And I've seen a lot of posts up about how old people in nursing homes are treated. They go downhill quickly. There's a group called Court Victims United, and people have been posting up pictures of their parents and grandparents that at the beginning of the year, they were at home. Pictures with them and their pets, and they're lively, and they got some color in their cheeks. And then there's pictures of them in a nursing home, in a hospital bed, with their eyes sunk in. They look like they lost 20 to 30 pounds. That ain't right. Let's see if we can. That's what Little E is typed. See if we can get it to focus. No, we can't. I'm sorry about that, folks. It put the comment back up, so that's cool. It says, document your story, man. Try and connect with larger outlets to share it because you've been through shit and you need justice. I do need justice. But then again, I don't have any support with getting a hold of these other places. They do the same thing that everyone does when you are called mentally ill. Their ears turn off. This is why anyone can victimize you when you're homeless or disabled and get away with it. Even more so if you're both. Now, the situation where the homeless are killed at over a 250 to 1 ratio per capita, of course, if they had equal numbers. Over 250 to 1 ratio over black people. Does that mean that black people have no right to complain? Because that's how I get treated by the majority of the black community when I speak up about the abuse that I've taken. It also happens to be how I get treated when I bring up the fact that men get abused too, that men are sexually molested and raped too. There are over 60 million men in the United States who were victims of sexual abuse before the age of 18. 60 million. What percentage of our population is that? That's 1/3 of the male population, isn't it? No? My math is wrong? That's fine. A lot of people, when I post up numbers that are just a couple of years old, tell me, oh, well, those aren't up to date, so they're wrong. No, they're not. They're not wrong. And if you want to argue over maybe there was a 5% change one direction or the other, that 5% change, well, it's either positive or negative, and it does exist. But when we're talking about 50% of the population, or sorry, 50% of those killed by police being homeless, although it's only 49%, that is still an astronomical number, especially given the size of their population within the United States. Most homeless people are homeless due to victimization, physical victimization, financial victimization, sexual victimization. The number one reason for women to become homeless is fleeing domestic violence. When your husband molests your daughter, you got two choices. It's not an easy choice to make. Number one, since it's going to take two incomes to actually keep the roof over your head so that you can keep your daughters, well, you ignore your daughters telling you about what he's done to you. And then she starts cutting on herself. And then she gets locked up on suicide watch and fed a bunch of pills because you didn't do anything about daddy raping her. Now, what's the other side to that? You decide that it's not okay for your daughters to be raped. So you turn him in. Now you don't have the money to pay the bills. You're homeless and your daughters get taken away and put into the system where they will likely get raped. Does it make it okay because it's not daddy raping them anymore? There was one woman lived in Longmont. She had some kids and her kids were raped by her husband. She told on her husband. Then she made a big old Facebook post about how glad she was that this officer had come to her door and arrested her husband and saved her and her kids from this son of a bitch. 3 months later, this lady is homeless in Boulder, Colorado. Her kids are in the system. And that very same officer whose praises she was singing just 3 months earlier, That very same officer is the one who came down to Pearl Street and victimized the fuck out of her. Charged her with crimes that she didn't commit. And makes it even more difficult to get your kids back. Makes it even more difficult to get a job that you can earn enough money to get your kids back. And then there's the fact that Colorado is extremely expensive. And Boulder, Colorado, and Boulder County, Colorado, is about the most expensive you're going to get. It's horrible. There are laws that are supposed to be in place specifically to protect people like me, specifically from situations like this. But when your predator has a badge, people look the other way. I was painted as a monster, so the media don't want to hear what I got to say. It's horrible. Y'all be safe. A lot of people say ignorant things like, it's never okay to hit a woman. It is always okay to defend yourself. Always. I don't care if it's a man or a woman who is assaulting you, you have the right to defend yourself. I don't care if it's a man or a woman who's the victim, it is always okay to defend yourself. It is time to stop looking away from the crimes of pretty white girls. It is time to stop victimizing innocent men over druggies who happen to be pretty white girls. And the police and those who work for the government need to be held accountable. Then again, they know how to manipulate the laws and their words in order to prevent you from being able to do that. We live in a disgusting country, and I'm not okay with it. Richest country in the world, huh? Greatest country in the world, huh? Adolf Hitler said he was going to make Germany great again. He brought it to its knees. Things aren't any better now. We got hate mongers on all sides. We got religious zealots on all sides. My religion is science. The reason for that is because science can be changed. The Bible supports slavery. It also supports killing your own wife. There's a lot of people who threaten to kill me over this stuff. And there's a lot of people that I know who say, hey, Sean, if that happened to me, I'd kill somebody. Well, it's a good thing that they're not me, isn't it? I am now 40 years old. 40. And I have killed 0 people. Meanwhile, some of my predators are in prison for killing people. So you're damn right I speak out. With Amy Kingery, I was on her kid's side. With Andrew Witcher, I was on his kid's side. With Amy or Rihanna Ingersoll, I was on Amy's kid's side. With Jamie Curtis, I'm on her kid's side. I don't give a fuck if we've been friends for 20 years. You abuse your kids, you screwed up. You screwed up big. Just because the cops didn't want to do their jobs doesn't make what you did to them okay. Have a nice day. Oh, I better take another picture of that just in case the first one was blurry. All right. Good night.